Please allow me to introduce our school principal. Must be very busy.
Okay, she's going to be
Yeah, so we will introduce our school board later when they are here. You know, it's a very tight. Okay, so I just want to say the 5 school member of our school member has made their enormous talent and this countless hours to make our here's the principal to. Should we? Yeah, I'd just like to introduce our school principal, Melody Joe, our vice principal leaders who will join us, and we have 5 board members. They commit their best talents and countless hours to make our kids not only learning Chinese, but also, let's say, dance, art, calligraphy, even their basketball taught by the MBA academics, Lego robotics, and many, many other subject curriculum we have. We are not only offering Chinese curriculum, but many other things. And we have a very star teacher from Edina too. We have our SAT teacher, Yong Lu, who has led the physics team, the Edina physics team to the, I think it's the Olympia physics and the physics bowl to the semifinal every year. And our 8th grade math teacher, George E., who is also our math director, who has led the Edina math team. We call him unsung hero for many, many successful years. Thanks, Georgie. And again, lastly, we're very grateful for all of you to come here today in person to articulate your vision and believe to us in person. I believe it will be a very important meeting before the election. So no matter who are the chosen one, we truly appreciate your commitment and support to the Edina community. And we are looking forward to working with you in the near future.
Thank you.
Okay. So next, let's let you take a sneak peek of our MCI spirit. This is our heritage kindergartner and our heritage first grader will showcase their debut performance of Chinese poem recitation. And both poems are about the beautiful fall weather and the peaceful life we all cherish. So written by the 2 famous poets in Tang Dynasty. So let's welcome for the mini show. And after the mini show, just one sentence. After the mini show, let's welcome 2 moderators for today. Mr. Wang, who is the Chief Investment Officer at AAA Insurance. He has a 7th grader in Southview Middle School. And Ms. Gui Hongchen, who is VP of Quantitative Analytic Consultant at Wells Fargo. She has a 5th grader at Normandale Elementary. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, they are both MICS family, and Gui Hong actually really enjoyed our Latin dance class very much. So we also offer adult class too. So now let's enjoy the show and good luck with the forum today.
Thank you. Hi guys. Thank you. Did a nice job.
对对对，我待会儿再说啊。
The only thing I can't, don't have to use my cheaters is if
Look at our beautiful children. All your effort is definitely appreciated. Also, it's a great contribution to our community. Now let's start our forum.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the MICS PTO School Candidate Forum for 2019. I'm very happy to see all of you here. It's a pleasure to see all the audience here. I'm sure all of the candidates will be happy for you to be here. I want to mention that all of the 7 candidates have been invited today. You can see 6 of them here. All of them have filed for the office. You will see their names on November 6th ballot. Before we get started, I'd like you to turn off your cell phones or any electronics or put them in silence. Thank you for doing that. The purpose of this forum is to hear more from their candidates. Here are the rules and format for today's forum. We ask all the candidates be seated throughout the whole forum. Speaking orders was assigned in advance by the computer. Last night, I wrote a program to assign 20 random numbers for each candidate. So we'll use this order for each question. Believe me, it's truly random. Here is the agenda of today's forum on the big screen. I won't read the agenda, but you can see that it's very clear. We have 4 sections after the great performance. I want to point out that we have 2 timers sitting there with our school purple t-shirt. They will time your response. Some question will be 1 minute, some question will 1.5 minutes. But if you have 20 seconds left, they will use the purple. They will wave the the yellow flag. If your time must stop, they will have red. The other timer is not here today. Not here now. Where is the other timer? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she will be back. Audience questions must be in writing. If you have questions, please grab a postcard from the table and write your questions on the card. We'll try to cover as many questions as possible. You hand your questions to the volunteers with the purple shirt. The forum is being videotaped, so please, audience, hold your applause to the end of the forum. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the 6 candidates. So the order will be their seated order. So the first one, Linda Friedley. Second one, Julie Green. Third one, Lo Nanny. The fourth one, Sarah Pasloff. The fifth one, Jenny Shaw. The fifth one, Lenny Waller-Friedman. Now let's move on to opening remarks. Each candidate has 1 minute to introduce yourself. So please, candidates, speak directly to the audience, not to me. So Sarah, I guess the first one is Linda Friedley. Yeah, by the order.
Is this on? It's on? Okay. So the last time I spoke at a candidate forum, I couldn't speak, so this is good. Good morning. As a child, I attended both urban inner-city schools and rural schools. I come from a family of very limited means, and I was the first to attend college and graduated with high honors. My husband and I moved back here 30 years ago to take advantage of our excellent schools. Edina Public Schools were strong partners with us on our son's educational journeys. Our oldest son is now a cardiologist at Duke University. Our younger son graduated from West Point and piloted Apache helicopters, and he's now an MBA student at Harvard University. Not bad for the grandchildren of a Gary, Indiana steelworker. Like you, we understand the importance of hard work and a rigorous education to reach one's full potential. As a teacher in Edina, I was privileged to collaborate with extraordinary colleagues, many of whom have become lifelong friends. I understand and have worked with students from all backgrounds and all educational levels and believe that our number one priority must be academic rigor and growth for every student.
You ready? Okay. Hi, my name is Julie Green. I've currently got 4 kids in 3 schools, 2 at the high school, 1 at here at Southview in 8th grade, and a Concord 4th grader. I bring with me as a board member 20 years of strategic and marketing work. I've attended dozens of board meetings and work sessions over the last 10 years, and I'm also a community-wide volunteer. I led the referendum that brought important financial and funding into our schools 2 years ago, and I'm also the co-organizer of TEDx. So every one of our students is important, every single one of them, no matter what they look like, how they come to us, or where they fall on our wide academic spectrum, the high end, the middle, and ones that struggle more. And I am running for school board because I think it's vital that we have a vision and a strategic direction that looks at our students, holding them to very high standards with academic rigor and challenge, and looks at their well-being. I don't think that those are 2 separate things. I think in order for our students to be successful, we have to look at both. That was a really fast minute.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Lou Nanny, a proud Edina High School graduate from the class of 2013. I went on to attend Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where I played hockey and studied biomedical engineering, and graduated in just 3 years, and now I'm an MBA student at the University of St. Thomas. All thanks in part to my time in Edina Public Schools. I then turned the page to get married, have children, only to settle down in the city I grew up loving, Edina. However, once I moved back, I couldn't stop saying to myself what happened to the city that I knew and loved, with almost 20% residents not sending their children to Edina Public Schools. And yes, we had an amazing year with our band robotics program, as well as winning more state tournaments than any other year. However, watching as Edina went from 1st to 10th, as per US News, as a lagging indicator, was truly disheartening. I want to implement the ABCs, which is academic achievement for all, base all board decisions off of transparency and data, as well as create multiple paths for all student success. I want to give back to Edina what Edina gave to me. Thanks.
This one. Hi, I'm Sarah Patzloff, and my husband, who's an Edina graduate, and I have 2 kids at the high school, a freshman and a senior. I want to share a little piece of my personal background. My great-great-grandfather, William Edward Macklin, was born in 1860, the son of an Irish immigrant. And through hard work and excellent education, he became a doctor at age 20. And because he was raised to believe in serving others, at age 26, he became a medical missionary doctor in China. He served in Nanking for 40 years and built the Nanjing Drum Tower Hospital, which is still operating today and is affiliated with the Nanjing University Medical School. Amazingly, in 2012, Jimmy Carter unveiled a bronze statue of my great-great-grandfather to commemorate the hospital's 120th anniversary, with many of my family members standing by his side. His legacy of hard work and a good education and service to others lives on in his descendants, including me. And that's why for the past 8 years, I've devoted 100% of my time, of my work to this school board, because you care about education and you need people to serve you. Thank you.
You ready? My name is Janie Shaw. Thank you for having me. I live here in Edina with my husband and my 2 sons, who both go to Edina schools. They take part in many different aspects of our schools, both the special services for kids who need extra help and our gifted and enriched programming. I have a business background. I was a marketing executive for the airline industry for many years, and some of my work there included the implementation of a revenue management tool, which basically took mass amounts of data and turned that into actionable information. I also led a team that identified, valued, and developed metrics for hundreds of customer touch points across 2 major airlines in work in merging them together. For the last 14 years, I've been really involved in our schools, from classroom volunteering, PTO presidency and leadership, a member of the PLC for 7 years, and I've sat on numerous district committees representing parents and staff, as I was a staff member for 3 years at Highlands Elementary, supporting our teachers and working in the classrooms with our students. Thank you. It was a short minute.
Hello, I'm Lenny Wallen-Friedman. Thank you for hosting this forum. My wife and I moved here 26 years ago because we believed the Edina provided the kind of education that gave opportunity for our kids, and we were right. We have 2 children that went to Edina through high school, graduated, and a third who's currently a junior in the high school. All 3 of my kids went through the Gifted and Talented program at Edina. My 2 oldest went to UMTIUMP for math. My next oldest did the Delbert Acceleration Path. As a family, we are aware of what academic excellence means and what rigor means. We're also aware that not every solution fits the need of every single student. Professionally, I'm an attorney with 30 years of litigation experience. I meet with clients, I gather information, and I give advice. I've spent the last 8 years on the school board. In addition to that, I've done a lot of volunteer work in the community. As the child of a special education teacher and a parent of successful children, I know that we need to provide a range of services to all of our kids. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. I think we're ahead of schedule, which is good, but don't get used to it. My name is Wei Huang. I'm going to give you 3 prepared questions, because these 3 questions, I don't know if the audience knows, they know. It's all pre-prepared, so I'm going to give the order. By the way, Huiho did a good job last night. This is too complicated even for an investment guy to see the decimals all the way to 10 digits. So, but anyways, everybody has prepared already. Oh, by the way, I have a kid in Edina School. My kid goes to MICS. We like Edina School so much. Last year when I got a new job in Detroit, my wife said, I like Edina. You commute. So I commute every weekend from Detroit to Edina, goes to support the kids because they're in grade school. So share the same sentiment as well. Your order for the first question will be Sarah, Lou, Linda, Lenny, Jenny, and Julie. Okay, since the first question everybody knows it's pre-prepared, it's prepared. The question is regarding communication transparency. If you're elected or re-elected, what is your plan to hear voices and get inputs from parents? How will you improve transparency in decision-making process at both school board and administration? Please be specific as the time allows. Thank you. So first is Sarah.
Well, first of all, part of what I pride myself on in this job is making sure that we're listening to our constituents. So that is the first thing that I will not only do, but continue to do, and that is to listen to the people who elected us. We also, something that we've been talking about, is reaching out to more of our constituencies and getting out of the boardroom and actually getting into places where you are. And so I'd like to see more of that happen as well. I think transparency is key. We have a very bright community, and I don't believe that we need to hide our mistakes, and I don't believe we should hide our joys. We need to be sharing this with the community. But when we do make a mistake or we don't do things exactly right, we need to own up to it, and we need to say what we've learned from it and how we're going to move forward, because that's critical. I don't think we need to hide those things from our community. Another opportunity to share is doing more ways of, or allowing more ways for feedback to come to us. So there's 3 minutes at board meetings, you can write us emails, but I'd like to see more open forums, more listening sessions, and ways for you to get feedback to us. And if that means us coming out, we need to do more of that. And lastly, I think we need to let parents know that when things change, if we change testing, if we change curriculum, that we need to let you know why we made the change and how that change could affect your students. We shouldn't just make changes in a dark room and then they just happen on our families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I grew up in the social media era, so everything is public. But I just want you all to know I'm always available by phone, email, social media. I love coffee, and since I first posted that, I've probably had 40 cups of coffee with different people to hear their concerns and just take notes and listen to the community members. But yeah, apart from the 3 minutes at school board meetings, I mean, I do think we have to have more of an open dialogue with community members, because there are only 7 board members representing tens of thousands of individuals in the community. And although unfair, that's how it is. So we do need to implement policies and strategies that are valid concerns for each and every constituent in the city. Transparency is key, and that's one of the main pillars I'm running on. The board needs to be fully transparent, as we're all on the board. We all have a vested interest in the community, whether we're homeowners or have children in the school system. And I believe all data to be public besides that which is banned by federal law. But for instance, the Hopkins District form is over 40 pages, whereas the Edina form was a one-pager with minimal information. And we need the community members to see the good, the bad, and the ugly so that we can come together and make the necessary changes. Thanks.
I started attending school board meetings about a year ago, and as a teacher, it was surprising to me at that time to the lack of transparency, what it appeared for me from the administration to the school board, because I think they need as much information as possible. The school board needs as much information as possible to make appropriate decisions. And as a teacher, I could see where there were some places in what was being presented from administration to school board that were lacking. So that was one of the impetus for me to run as well. I do think, again, as a teacher, there's also a lack of transparency sometimes from admin to teachers, and admins to parents. So I would work on those avenues. Specifically, if I were to be elected to the school board, I would try to band together with majority of school board members. So there's 7, you need 4 together to write policy to create some more specific areas where there would be an expectation of transparency. And I agree with others who have spoken already about the absolute need to create more avenues for communication between parents and school board, parents and administration, and parents and teachers in a more relaxed manner than the pressure of 3 minutes at a school board meeting. I think creating open dialogue is extremely useful, and I tried to do that in my campaign. If anyone writes a question to my campaign website and I answer it, and I've been told by many constituents that isn't occurring everywhere, so I'm pleased about that, because I want to hear when you disagree and I want to hear when you agree.
Thank you. So we actually have worked on improving transparency over the last couple of years. I helped lead a committee of district people and community members to talk about things that we could do differently. Based on those committee meetings, we implemented a couple changes. We now live stream our school board meetings. We now have a 6:30 opportunity for questions and answers, so you can come at 6:30 and actually engage in a dialogue with the board as opposed to limited to the 7 o'clock. We've also looked at having town hall meetings. We've looked at doing community outreach to organizations so we can get better feel for what the organizations are thinking. And we've looked for other ways to ensure that we can get community feedback. On major issues, I will continue to advocate for reaching out to the community, but in a way that we get meaningful data. So I want to have surveys that are statistically valid. We can have forums, and where we have forums, we've done recently where we do a stratified forum, so that gets us reach of a lot of different people rather than just the people that show up. The other thing is for transparency, and this is interesting. When I came to the board 8 years ago, when we had a work session, the agenda never listed what the purpose of the agenda was, and the agenda never listed what it was that the district wanted from the school board members. When I became school board chair, I insisted that our agendas have a purpose. And so we now list on our agendas why we're meeting, and we're told in advance what is being sought from the school board. We need to push that information out to the community in addition to what we're now doing with the school board. I do agree. Thank you.
So as someone who's spent time in our district on such a broad-reaching level as I have, I think that these skills are critical to a successful board. I think it's important that we make sure we have multiple channels of communication for parents, for students, for teachers, to everybody to be in contact with each other. But what we do with the information after we receive it, to me, is what matters most. I have the expectation that a board member will do all their necessary due diligence to understand the scope of an issue, who the audience is that's impacted, what the size of that audience is, and what has already been done to address that issue. It's so important for an effective board member to have a clear understanding of how to assess the need that's in question and what that need looks like relative to the other needs in our district. In order to create the best plan to move forward, we need all of those parts. We cannot have board members who focus on the needs of a small but very loud group. I believe that when we listen, we learn. One idea that I have for creating more transparency, and this is something that I've heard out in the community for the past, I guess we're going on 2 months, I've spoken with over 500 people. I think that it's important that we look at maybe filming our board work sessions, which is where the actual work occurs, and it limits that people are limited by that time. At a minimum, we need more detailed minutes from those meetings. We must hold ourselves accountable, and the absolute most transparency is to share what we see and what we do.
So regarding communication and transparency, we can do better. There is no doubt. I like a lot of the different ideas about creating more pathways so that we can get input from parents and teachers and students. Gifted education and advanced academics, for me and my family, I'm very familiar with. I'm currently in levels of different programming at the elementary, the middle school, and at the high school. I think that's really important for people to understand about me as a candidate. I'm familiar with credit by assessment, testing out of the pre-AP 9th grade class. I'm familiar with the language arts earned honors class. I went and sat in the back of that classroom. And as board members, what I would like to see and what I would do is I would continue doing that, because what you do when you sit in the back of a class and you watch things go on, you learn. So that when it comes time to make policy decisions, you're very familiar with what maybe the challenges are and you understand it better. That is something as a board I would like to see more of. On top of that, the other thing that I think we need to really work on is in communication is opportunities. What is currently happening? You know, opportunities for high achievers evolve some outside of the classroom and even a little bit within the classrooms. You know, I don't know how many of you know we have an econ team that competed at Harvard in the spring last year. They placed like 13th in the country. My daughter was on it, and I didn't know it was going to happen, so.
Thank you. That was good response to question number one. Question number two, again, I forgot to remind everybody, 1.5 minutes each. Live question would be 1 minute each. And once again, because it's pre-prepared, so that's the reason everybody knows the order, but when it comes down to live question, we will not give out order, we will just pick one by one. So everybody, let's get ready for question number two. The order will be, first is Linda, second is Sarah, third is Julie, fourth is Lenny, fifth is Jenny, and last but not least is Lou. And question number two, I try to, it's a little bit prepared, but as I was going through some of the live questions, I think some of that touched upon it for the prepared questions too, so I might mix this in. But for what is written here, question number two regarding the budget planning. What is the priority of budget planning in terms of class sizes, teachers, resources, technology innovation, gifted programs, and special education? And why? I think quite a few live questions touched upon that too, in terms of the diverse kind of programs we offer in Edina. So I guess question number one is Linda. Thank you.
Well, I think the number one thing is we need to understand that we have an absolute responsibility to serve the needs of all learners. So that's a baseline for everything. Regarding the budget specifically, our goal should be to get as much budget as we can, and part of that is making sure that Edinans keep our Edinans in school here, as was mentioned before, nearly 20% of Edinans are choosing to not attend school in Edina, and when they choose not to attend school in Edina, the dollars flow away from Edina. So we need to serve all the kids. It's more expensive to serve kids who have needs. Special education is expensive. Actually, gifted services isn't very expensive. Right now, there's been discussion, and I'm sure some of you are aware, about adding back some honors courses, and there might be a startup to that, but once the class is established, it's no more expensive than any other class. And actually, the teacher-student ratios are tighter, so it's actually less expensive in certain ways to offer those classes, and I'm 100% in favor of them. Again, having more people attend school in the community makes our budget issues less complicated, and bias is always towards resources for teachers close to the kids. So everything is oriented towards servicing all the kids. Money in the classrooms is my #1 priority.
All right, several different things on this one. The budget is complicated and has lots of different sources, but the bottom line is one of the main funding sources, about 55% of our budget, comes from the state. And we do try to lobby with the state to encourage that there's more funding per pupil on an annual basis. We also have an operating levy in our district, which we are blessed that we have a community that supports education, and we always get to the cap on that operating levy. But as Linda mentioned, we are losing students. Our enrollment is the lowest it's been in 10 years. Our resident enrollment is the lowest it's been in 10 years. And our open enrollment is now going to be the highest it's been in 10 years. This is a concern. It's a budgetary concern, and it's a concern when it comes to confidence. The other things that we need to do when it comes to looking at budget is looking at our spending versus our incoming dollars that I just talked about. So when we look at our spending, and one of the big things that we do every 2 years is we approve contracts for our various lobbying groups, or employee groups, sorry. And one of our biggest employee groups is our teachers. And over my time on the board, I've seen that teacher contract usually cost over a 2-year period more than the money that we get from the state, at least a 2 or 3 times level. So these are things that we need to be working harder at. I have pushed back to say that we can't overspend what we're getting in. Thank you.
Audience, please hold your applause to the end of forum to save time. Thank you.
That's it. Julie. Julie's next.
It's me, right?
Yeah, Julie's next.
So there's nothing more that I would want to do than to be able to fund every single need of every single student in our public schools here, so that we're meeting all students. But we don't have a magic wand. So when I look at prioritizing the budget, I look at it first as a whole. I'd love to see discussion with our new Director of Finance to say, are there ways that we can generate more additional funds? Are we being as resourceful as possible with our current funds? Are there issues we'd address that don't cost additional money, but making adjustments that make sense and that are more effective? And are we being efficient with our time? Time is money. Our strategic plan, we're in a 1.5 years of planning. That's 77 plus meetings that have taken place. Imagine if all that time and resources was put towards looking at gifted education and our services, or special ed, or ways that we can improve things. That to me is a bit wasteful. Prioritizing specific budget items, as the question asked, is a little bit of a hypothetical, and it's difficult to answer without knowing the full knowledge of all the impact of the different needs. But what's really important and clear is that we need a strategic direction for our schools that is visionary, right? And that it looks at all of our students that we're having the biggest impact in the classroom. So that strategic plan is where all those decisions come from, and that's why it's super important that we get that straight. Thanks.
So all of these areas that are listed are priorities. We do not, as a district, rank one group of students over another as a matter of general policy. Our goal as a district is to serve the needs of all the students. So how do we deal with budget issues? So, for example, the school board will get a recommendation from administration. If it's an instance where we need to cut, administration will look for areas where we can make a reduction that will have the most minimal impact in the classroom. Where we're looking for enhanced opportunities, we take a look and we say, where is there a need? And so how can we most effectively meet those needs? Now, if you want to pinpoint me and say, where are my priorities? The first thing I really would look at is pre-kindergarten through 5th grade, because elementary school is where we build the foundation for our kids. We need to reach out to those who come to school who aren't prepared. We need to reach out for those who come to school prepared. If we do that, we will have kids who will excel far greater amounts than what we currently have. The other thing is, we've talked about gifted services, and there are some tweaks that we can make in our program. We can look at expanding it to earlier than 3rd grade. We can look at saying, can we do enrichment in science and social studies? Because right now we have math and language arts. When it comes to the secondary, we need to look at having options for our kids. So we talk about a compacted class, an embedded honors class. We talk about credit by assessment. That's an area that we need to emphasize to our families that it's an opportunity. Ultimately, we need to look at need.
Thanks, Bruce. Jenny. Yeah, it's you.
Great. First, I think it's important that we recognize that our current budget process, we're a little bit out of alignment. Our budget was set this year before our strategic plan was completed, and it's completely irresponsible for us to assume that we would make any big decisions until our next budget cycle. That doesn't make sense to me with my business mind. As for smaller class sizes, yes, I think we all want that, but the reality is the financial impact to significantly move the needle on class sizes is something that's not possible for us right now. So then our priority becomes, how do we identify and replicate those successes that we desire from a small class and implement them for our students? As for technology, I believe it's a tool for learning, but not a replacement for teaching. That's where it stands with me. I think it's unfortunate that you've been led to believe that our Honors and Enrich program is in jeopardy and that that is the reason that we're losing students, because it's not true. I would like more information to understand the needs across many groups, including input from our teachers, and you should expect that behavior from every board member as well. I'm not an all or nothing candidate, and as a board member, I would always be asking myself, does the cost and benefit in front of me align with our priorities? Done. I heard that. Okay, sorry. So as I was saying, I would always be asking myself and fellow board members, does the cost and benefit of what is in front of us align with our priorities and goals that are centered around student growth and learning for all of our students? Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, we have 1,694 resident students that don't go to Edina Public Schools, and from that, that's millions of dollars that are leaving the Edina Public School system. So, and there was an independent study done on hundreds of families that the administration wouldn't do, but the top 2 reasons these families were leaving were because of lack of rigor and politics in the classroom. So to combat this, I believe wholeheartedly we need traditional honors and AP courses, which might have a higher implementation cost, but do not cost more per pupil than any other classes. And it would be an amazing return on investment because the more options the students have, the more resident students stay. And in turn, the class sizes would decrease because the more students that a teacher is responsible for, the harder it is for them to teach. And we can say with confidence that smaller classes improve grades for younger learners. And also, I do believe that we have to keep the right teachers in Edina, so we need to give them the resources necessary, so long as they're the ones who are all for academic excellence for each and every single one of our students. And as for gifted and special ed, with the population growing at 18%, this truly should be a point of emphasis. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for answering question number 2. The question number 3 is our last prepared question. The order will be, again, from Dr. Guiho's quantitative model. Julie first, Linda second, Jenny third, Lou fourth, Sarah fifth, and again, Lenny last but not least. This question is a little bit kind of a, can somebody turn the slide to question number 3? I'm asking the principal to turn the slide to number 3. Question number 3. I'm also trying to incorporate a lot of, actually 5 postcards here, asking different variations, different touch points about this question. And as you can imagine, the reason we put this as the last prepared question is a little loaded. People are very passionate about this because, as you know, this was mostly asked. Yeah, we would like to specifically ask about what matrix or metrics is Edina falling behind compare our peer groups. I know very very competitive against hockey, but more importantly academic too. Like Minnetonka and Wayzata. Example: test scores, diversity, access, and why? Why didn't these issues get addressed earlier? Again, not pointing to anybody. But if you're elected, re-elected, what will you do to rebuild the parents' confidence? How would you make such academic excellence rigor in the strategic plan to get implemented correctly, effectively, and timely, and also with clear accountability? There are questions address why there was a migration of students. I think that's a little bit more specific, but since we're short on time, if you can summarize on 3 or 4 top issues of answers to this question, that would be great. Like I said, a lot of questions here. Thank you. First, it would be Julie.
Can we each have 5 minutes? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so there's a lot to this question. I'm gonna focus on 2 things. One is rank, and ranking our school district compared to other districts, neighboring districts. U.S. News and World Report. So that ranking is mostly based on our state standards, our MCA scores. 1 data point, right? If you look at the different methodology that they used and changed last year, there's fluctuation there. Our college readiness, we're at the very top of that list of 10. I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say we have Susie. Susie has 6 classes at the high school. In 5 of those classes, she gets an A. In 1 class, she gets a C-. What's her GPA? 3.61. So, is Susie a B student? No, she's not a B student, right? The broader story that this metric presents is that Susie's a B student, she's failing, let's look at everything. That's not what we should do. We need to look at the driving factor of what's going on with Susie in that 1 class that we need to work on and we need to improve. That is how I would like to see our district look at metrics. What's our report card, right? How do we measure up? What's important to us? High academic achievement and rigor is important, and currently we have a robust program. You can come talk to me at Jerry's or call me. I can tell you what my kid has been doing. We always can do better and make tweaks, but that's an important thing to remember. That was really a fast minute. Holy cow. Okay. Thanks. I don't know who's next.
Well, I don't know if everyone here knows, but I was an intervention teacher, so my job in school as a teacher was to take children who were below grade level and work with them so that they become at least at grade level or above grade level, and that's my passion, and it can be done. So I'm always oriented towards for growth for all kids, but that was my work. I haven't spoken about that in this here before. I want to direct yourself to, I don't know if you know this, but Minnetonka's annual report, which is 31 pages, just came out just recently, a day or 2 ago. And I want to read to you from their report regarding, we'll go back to the U.S. News rankings. If you look within the U.S. News rankings, the reason that we're dropping, and we have dropped, and we can't deny that we've dropped, has more to do with how we're serving underserved kids. That's driving that number down. They've changed how they're viewing things, and that's the driver. And we're not doing a great job with our underserved kids. In contrast to Minnetonka, I'm going to read from their report right now. It says, one of the new measures, which are talking about U.S. News, measures shows that our African American and Hispanic students in every elementary and middle school grade not only outperform African American and Hispanic students nationally, but they're outperforming Caucasian students nationally. Our African American and Hispanic students also outperform Caucasian students in Minnesota districts. I went dead, sorry. They're also outperforming Caucasian students in many Minnesota districts. Our 2019 graduating class had 84% of its students taken at least 1 AP or IB course during their high school year. Point is, we need to do better with all the kids. That is a part of what's driving our scores down. We need to do better with that.
So a few key pieces of data that I think we need to talk about when we're comparing ourselves to other districts like Minnetonka and Wayzata. We need to realize we are not the same. Over the last 10 years, Edina has had the greatest change in our demographic of learners who fall in our multi-language learners category, our special education, and our free and reduced lunch category. We've gone up roughly 4.5% versus Minnetonka, who has actually decreased by 2%. Over the last 5 years, though, some good data points are Edina has had the highest or second highest ACT, so college readiness scores, in the state, and just this week showed growth in all categories. We have the highest number of students taking AP classes in any school in our state. Where work is being done is to make sure we as a district are getting the most out of our MCA tests, and that students outside of our highest achievers are starting to show growth in their MAPS test. I also want to talk about the U.S. News and World Report. I think that has been catastrophized by candidates, and I'm concerned about that because I have yet to hear, before this morning, thank you, Linda, for doing that, truly understanding what that means. We do have a lot of work to do to service our kids who are underserved. We are hitting it out of the ballpark with our kids who are our high achievers, and we need to make sure we keep our focus on them, but we also focus on the kids who need our attention, if that is something that is truly important to us as a community.
To me, right?
Yes, up to Jenny is Lou.
Okay, perfect. Well, when relating us to Minnetonka and Wayzata, I think we really have to focus on the sentiment. I've seen a lot of pride decrease in the city of Edina, particularly because a lot of the resident students aren't being met. And that's the school board's problem. We have to actively engage with community members to ensure that we keep our place as number one, both academically, quantitatively, and qualitatively. So why didn't this get addressed earlier? I just think as the years passed, less and less data was made visible by the administration to the community members. And then parents started to see the writing on the walls. So in order to rebuild the parents' confidence, I don't want to just give you all a Band-Aid. I want to implement a real fix. And confidence is not built by only hearing the good. We need to be able to take constructive criticism and learn from our mistakes in the past. So to rebuild the confidence, we have to blatantly know where we are and where we need to be, and this is done by data. So academic rigor is only done through offering multiple courses, traditional, honors, AP, and everything of the like. And I think we have to, we have to put up the high implementation costs in order to get those resident students back to Edina. And I personally will never vote for implementing a plan that has not been backed by data. Thanks.
Sarah Paslow.
All right, there's a lot of things to hit on here, but yes, we have seen declining scores, and that is primarily in our MCAs, but we also see it in our MAP scores. And the diversity thing, if you want to compare diversity-wise to Wayzata and Minnetonka, I looked on the website last night from MDE. Our stats aren't that different. And I don't like looking at stats and saying, well, because we're more diverse, that's why our scores are dropping. That to me seems completely backwards. But when you do compare our scores with those two districts and you look at growth and you look at meets and exceeds, they're beating us in exceeds standards, they're beating us in high growth. And that is a concern. As for why this didn't get addressed earlier, it's because there's been a lack of belief that we need to address this. It's been happening, and we have not had the support on the board or in the district to make these changes and address these. As for rebuilding confidence, I think that is absolutely critical. And again, like I said earlier, we need to say, when we've fallen down, this is what we've learned from it, and this is how we're going to improve it. And I think we have to rebuild that trust with our community. As for holding everything accountable in terms of the implementation, we will have to set policy, we will have to set guidelines and expectations, and we will have to set metrics. We have to have goals, and then we have to have timelines as to when we will address those and make sure we're meeting them.
So this is about a 2-hour question, so I welcome people to come up to me afterwards. But I do disagree with the central premise of the question. We are not falling behind Minnetonka and Wayzata. There is one data point, and that's MCA, that people are focusing on, and I'll get back to that. But before I get there, our ACT scores remain the top in the state. Our AP scores and our volume remains top in the state. We do a survey of our seniors. Every senior is required to do the survey in order to get the diploma, in order to get their cap and gown. 95% of the seniors say that they are ready for college, they're well prepared. Niche.com, if you want to look at a thing, says that we're #1 in terms of preparing kids for college. So let me get back to MCA. What the MCA is telling us is that we're not meeting the needs of the low-end performers. That's what it's telling us. And it's also telling us something else. The test is designed to say, does your curriculum align with state standards? And the test is telling us that our curriculum, in fact, wasn't aligning. So what have we done? We changed our math program 2 years ago. We went from everyday math to Singapore math. And I will tell you that as Singapore math rolls out and gets implemented, we will see our math scores go up. The other thing we did is we changed our language arts curriculum a few years ago. As that takes hold, we will see our scores go up in that area. So in terms of confidence, we need to go back to telling people who we are and what we stand for. I think that we have sat there for a number of years and said, we're Edina, do we need to say anything else? And the answer is yes, we do need to say something else. We need to start to tell people where our successes are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to the live questions. We got 16 cards. Each card has multiple questions. We try to cover as many as questions, but given time constraint, we are 4 minutes behind the schedule. So I think we can ask at most 6 questions. So each candidate has 1 minute. I will be short. The first question goes to Julie Green. The question is about the 4-day gifted program. Do you support adding a 4-day gifted program in elementary school to serve students near the upper end of academic level? If you support, in your opinion, which grades should be covered by this 4-day gifted program? What criteria should be used to determine who should be added to this program? And when do you plan to have such program ready to get started? Julie Green.
For all of us, can you repeat the question? Because there's 5 questions within the question. I want to answer it, but I want to make sure that I'm
Please bear
listening.
with me with my Chinese accent. I will
No,
try
it's,
to
no,
be very
that's fine.
slow.
I can understand. I just want to
Do
hear
you
it all
support
again.
adding a 4-day gifted program in elementary schools to serve students near the upper end of academic level? If you do, in your opinion, which grades should be covered by this 4-day gifted program? I guess she mentioned something 4-day program in Minnetonka and Lakeville, something like that. And what criteria to be used to select students to be added this program? And when do you plan to have such program started? It's clear. Julie Green, you go first.
Okay, there's a lot in that question. I think as we develop our strategic plan, it's really important that we look at our advanced achievement and academic opportunities as part of that. And then it comes down to what are we able to afford to do? And can we empower teachers to be as effective as possible in the classroom? So I look at my kid who's in 4th grade right now. Don't tell her I'm sharing this with you, but she teeters on that gifted, right? She's in, she's kind of out, she's right on that edge. And I look at what the teacher's doing to get her up to there, and she is showing so much growth over the last year. I don't want to put her in that higher place because she is growing, because she's getting what she needs. I look back at my senior now, who at Concord was in a group where there was a ton of kids that were performing at that highest 99% level. They had to add an extra class in that 5th grade group. Oh, this is really hard. Please come talk to me after and we can talk more about this because it's really hard.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Next one, Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
Okay, so I actually asked this question of my middle child who went to Yale and went through gifted programs, and he agrees with me that we should not have a specific full-day program. what we need to do is we need to expand the services that we currently offer. And as I said earlier, we should move earlier into the curriculum, the gifted type programming in second grade, first grade, as part of the entire classroom experience. And we should broaden it to include science and social studies because we're currently limited. What our students gain from being in the regular program with enhanced curriculum is an opportunity to interact with a series of students. And so we do need, beginning in kindergarten, to say to our kids, you will be working in a diverse world. And so you'll need to know how to work with different students. And within that context, we can then break out, we can flex group, and we can cover other areas. But I think that I would prefer that model, from what I understand, to a full day program that separates the kids.
Thank you. Linda Friedley.
Yeah, this is an important question to me. I do know a family who has a gifted child who just now made the decision to go to Minnetonka, an Edina family, because I think they provide the services earlier. I can talk to you a little bit about this from personal experience. I'm completely in favor of expanding our gifted services. However, I also think that we could expand down our percentiles where we really hold it tight. Because we have so many really bright kids in Edina, I think it can come down a little bit, and like you're picking up the 97s and 96s, and actually I think Minnetonka goes to 95 to offer more accelerated classes. I'm 100% in favor of beefing up, incredibly beefing up our services. I think it's a morality question. I remember when our older son was in first grade, and he went to Normandale, the French immersion program, and even though that created an additional challenge, he was so bright that he was actually starting to do some behaviors, some tick behaviors. We didn't understand why they were happening. It was because he was bored. I think
Low nanny. Audience, please hold your applause to the end of the forum to save time. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very open-ended question, so I'll just keep it very high level. Yes, I can say I would be for that if the data shows it to be beneficial. I personally have not looked into said data, but that would be something that, if on the board, I would look into. And as for criteria, I think, we could, like Linda was alluding to, expand it to the top 5% or top 10. I mean, whatever the numbers show of the prior year's course, so that you have to really work up to become eligible for the full day program. And then in elementary school, I'm all for gifted and talented programs, whether it's a pull-out or classes. Yeah, I'm all for that. Thanks.
Next one, Sarah Kasloff.
So yes, this is something I would be interested in looking at. One, from a competitive standpoint, like I said, we're losing students, so I would like to look at what is causing that and if this is something that would help us. I completely agree with Linda on expanding our metrics, if possible, to allow more kids into these types of programs. Because, for example, we have, in 2018, we have 36% of fifth graders at the 90th percentile. That's a lot of kids. And we have to cut it off so high with the model that we're currently running, with the pull-out model. And again, that goes over for math and reading. So looking at a program like this, in terms of starting it, you do have to look at an implementation plan of how we would do that. And we do have 2 magnet programs in our community already with CP and French immersion. But absolutely, I think we should look at that. And regarding, separating kids, I don't think it's about separating every minute of every day, but there are social and emotional needs for these learners who are gifted and talented. So I do think we need to honor that.
Thank you. Next one, Jenny Shaw.
Thank you. Our family hasn't encountered this specific need, but I would be interested in seeing the numbers to say, is this something that we are missing in Edina? Do we have enough kids to keep this program sustainable? Because that would be important if we were going to be dedicating funding to it. I am all in favor of the work that is currently being done by our administration to look at identifying kids on a more broad scope than just looking at their MAP scores to identify if they should be in enriched and gifted programming. I have a son who scored off the charts on his maps in math and in science, but fell short on reading because he has a learning disability and was not offered services within the current model. So I wholeheartedly believe that we need to look at changing the pathways that our children have as on-ramps into the program and also off-ramps when they get put into a class that isn't the right class for them, when they get put on a train that isn't going the direction that they should be going in because they've been put there by a test score. We need them to have opportunities to come out of that program as well.
Thank you. Live question number 2. Order, okay, one by one. By the way, forgot to remind everybody, we have a live stream going on, so. Sorry. Question number 2 is, it's a tough question.
Sarah, you go first.
Sarah, go first. I was going to read the question. Okay. The news today is filled with stories of teachers using their positions to further their political ideas. Is this a problem in Edina school systems? And if so, what are your suggested solutions? Sarah first, yes.
I don't think this is going on across the board. I think this has happened in our school district. I think we have examples that we could look at. And in the end, the most important thing to me is that our children are there to learn and to figure out their own opinions. I don't want one ideology, one political thought taught in our schools. Our kids need to be exposed to everything. And as a parent of 2 teenagers, I will tell you they are plenty opinionated and they can figure this out themselves. As for how we ensure that this isn't going to happen, it's through policy. We have to have strong policy that says this is what our expectations are for our teachers. And this is how you can share in the classroom, but you cannot make children feel that because you have a power position that they need to limit and in fact maybe even hide their own beliefs because they may be affected in their grades or the attitude from their teacher toward them. So we need openness.
Linda. Oh no, yeah, Linda. Oh, it's actually Lenny, sorry. Very complicated model.
Okay, so this is an issue that has actually not been raised much in the last year. It's an issue that came up a couple of years ago, again, in isolated circumstances. And it's interesting because I actually met with the superintendent and I said, you know, we have a policy. We actually have a policy that directs this. Policy 606 says that teachers may allow the students to engage in political discussions. Teachers may not use those discussions to further their own interest. So we have an existing policy. So here's what happened. I went to the superintendent and I said, can we reinforce this? So he hired a couple of attorneys to come in and give a talk to our teachers a couple of years ago to say, here's what the policy is, here's what your rights are in the classroom. Do not use the classroom as a vehicle to push your political beliefs. But yes, it is okay to have political discussions among the students. We should have those discussions. The students should be free to present both ideas, either side, whatever it is, and just that the teachers are not supposed to be using their voice to convince a student to go in a particular way.
Next one is Linda.
Well, I was a teacher, and I took Policy 606 very seriously. I don't think that any student I ever had would know my political beliefs, and I don't think that unless you were in a course at the high school level or middle school level where it was specifically oriented towards politics, I mean a political science class or whatnot, that you would need to be discussing your politics. Considering the fact that we're having another presidential election coming up pretty soon, I hope that Policy 606 will be enforced across the board. This is a serious issue, and all children should be, again, all views should be welcomed. We should create environments for appropriate political discourse within the context of the classes where there's appropriate. Schools are here to teach kids how to learn, but not what. They're teaching them how to learn, but not what to learn. That's not the job of the school system. I'm really focused on just basic things like writing, reading, and letting them figure that out as adults.
Jenny, you're next, please.
Thank you. So in my children's time here in Edina, I have asked them many times, they have never encountered this problem. In my time in our schools and in our classrooms, I have never encountered this problem, but I do recognize that a few years ago there were some isolated incidents, and I think it is unfortunate that that idea has spread through our community and still continues to be spread through the community. The way I look at it and the way I answer this question when I'm out meeting with people is, I've got a kiddo in the high school who currently right now is at that exact age where he is forming his own political beliefs, and I need him to have teachers who are remembering that policy 606, because I need him to have a safe place to voice his ideas. I need him to be in a room with a trusted adult that is going to facilitate those communications between himself and other students who may not feel the same way. I think the solution is that we model the behavior that we want to see. And as a board member, I hope you will acknowledge that I am modeling that behavior that I would expect our teachers to do. And thank you.
Julia next. And then last but not least, sister.
Right, so in my experience with my kids, my oldest did see some things in the classroom a couple years ago, and my kids they've been able to form their own opinions, but it was an isolated incident, in my opinion, and I'm not going to speak to the teacher, but I think it's important to know that we have worked on it as a district from what I see. I'm not on the board, so I wasn't part of that, but I have seen an improvement, and my kids have too, and I check in with them a lot about this. But I want to talk about politics, because in this election cycle, there's been a lot of talks. This feels very political. And I could not agree with you more that it does. I don't see our board as making sure that we have two sides represented. We have 8,500 sides, and they are our students. And that is why we have a state election law that says we are all nonpartisan candidates. And I find it irresponsible not to be. On top of that, I think that we set the standard for our students and for our teachers, and it has to start at our school board level. Thanks.
Yeah, I do think this is a huge problem on those select occasions, just because this is something that should never come up. Yes, we do have policy 606, but if there's no stringent disciplinary actions, then we all send our kids to school for 8 hours a day, trusting the teachers during their brain development stages. And we need to ensure that the teachers teach and let the students be entitled to their own opinions and form their own beliefs, because they're at a very young, immature age where this is shaping them for the rest of their lives. And the last thing that we need a teacher to do, left or right, is push a political agenda on these students.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the third question. I think we can take at most two more questions, given the time constraint. This question goes to Lo Nanny first. It's about the huge class size, near 30 people. It's very hard for teachers to keep orders and help everyone. Most of times, the squeakiest wheel got attention. 2 teachers a class are actual 1, as the assistant teachers is temporary and inexperienced. How do you change that situation? Lo Nanny, you go first.
Okay. Well, I think that personally we have large class sizes, due in part to resident students leaving and our budget kind of decreasing over the last couple of years. So in order to combat the large class size, as I alluded to earlier, I truly and wholeheartedly believe that we need to ensure that resident students stay in Edina so that we don't have a decreasing budget and we can actually get to the point where we have enough money to hire more and the right teachers in order to offer classes of all different rigor and ability for the students, and then in turn that'll help decrease the class size.
Thank you. Sarah Pasloff.
So this is a tough one. I've been on the board, like I said, for 8 years. And during that time, I will tell you that for the most part, class size guidelines haven't changed significantly. The biggest changes hit kindergarten when we went from all-day K to from a paid all-day K to state all-day K. And I actually voted against that. I still wanted to have a half-day option, but when we were allowed to take extra funding from our parents, we could get the class sizes that we want. When it became state paid, then we went back to larger class sizes. This is an issue of funding. You have to be able to pay the salaries, and you have to have enough kids to be able to pay those salaries. Like I said in an earlier answer, when we're looking at our contracts, when we're looking at our budget, that budget affects class sizes. It's just how it happens. And so also when we're going to lose students potentially, that can affect class sizes. And some people think that as we lose students, our class sizes will get smaller. What will happen is we'll have to give up staff.
Thank you. Jenny Shaw.
So I alluded to this before. In a limited budget, when we cannot decrease class sizes, how do we go and replicate those outcomes that are happening in small classes? How do we make that happen in our schools? Those successes tend to revolve around the ability to identify students who have a need, to have real-time intervention for that need, and to have a system in place to monitor their progress. That continuous loop is the work that we need to be doing in our schools to support the kids within the class sizes that we have. I will tell you that I actually spend time every week in a class at Highlands Elementary. Just this week, we had a class of 29 students, and I saw the teacher who is doing this work able to make that happen. I think it is imperative that we ensure that our funding still allows our teachers to have para support in the classroom. That's something that would be a priority to me, because that continual loop of identifying a need, supporting it, and monitoring it is key to that success.
Thank you. Linda Friedley. Linda.
Well, this is a huge issue. I think Lou mentioned his original answer was, again, making sure that we keep resident students here, that we continue to be the district of choice, take some pressure off the budget, so that's step one. Number two, it's a little down in the weeds, but our strategic plan that we're supposed to be operating on right now specifies RTI process, which is response to intervention, which would allow more flexibility, even within a grade level, for instance, for a math class, where you have some of the more advanced learners with actually a couple more kids in the room, when you have the more typical learners with a little bit lower class size, and when you have the children who are below grade level with even smaller class size, so that you can help advance their growth. That actually works beautifully, and I wish we were still following that with fidelity across the district, but we're not. And I would look towards going back to that, because you can play a little bit with it, even with a grade level. Again, keeping the enrollment up, and then using the RTI process so that you can really help the kids that need the help.
Thank you. Lenny, you go for next.
So we have seen increased class size at the secondary level over the last few years, even with increased enrollment. The issue is that state funding does not keep pace with inflation for the district. And so what we need to do is we need to get to the state and say, listen, you need to revise the funding model so it actually funds state education. I have personally sat down with our House of Representatives person, I've sat down with our state senator, and I've sat down with the head of the MDE and discussed with all of them the need to increase state funding, the need to review the model, because what they're doing is you give it 1% a year or 2% a year, but our inflationary costs run at 3%, and that's what's causing us over the years to increase class size. So if we can review the policy for providing funding and actually make a significant investment at a state level, we can then actually reduce our class sizes. And by the way, we haven't changed class size guidelines at the elementary level. Thank you.
Julie, it's your turn.
State funding does have an impact on class sizes, and I'm going to go back to something that I was explaining before about specific, and this is when I look at what I can provide as a school board member is my current that I'm in with my kids right now in gifted and talented services. So my daughter in 5th grade at Concord, that year was like a bubble year. We had an enormous amount of kids that scored 99% or above in math. So what happened is our gifted program, in the one class that we had where they would get pulled out, just imploded, right? Too many kids. There was like 45. The next year, I have a kid right behind. He was in gifted, but that was a lower year, right? Not as many kids. So his number, right, he didn't hit as high of a number, but he was still able to get pulled out. So I think what's really important when we look at class sizes and we talk about pulling out, we talk about all these different things, we have to go back to empowering our teachers so that they can have the biggest impact. Because what we're able to do with fluid, I'm going to just finish this, with that fluid model of looking is that we have to make adjustments so that we are servicing kids and we don't have 40 kids in one gifted place at a time. So I'm sorry I went over, but I wanted to explain that.
Thank you. A final question. And by the way, we can't cover most of these questions. We do have a website, email address later on, and we can get to the candidates and try to find answers to your questions. Last one, let's finish on a high note, or maybe on a lighter note. It's a long question. In some classes, personalized learning becomes self-learning. On one hand, self-learning through reading is not efficient. On the other, it is hard to students' eyes. In addition, additional resources online, read through iPad is even worse to eyes. I asked my son, who is a 4th grader, and find out one class has 27 students, has 3 wearing glasses. Another class has 20 students, 3 are wearing glasses. Another class, 17 students with 4 wearing glasses. I guess I need glasses too. These are only students have to wear glasses all the time. There's much more like my son who actually has bad eyes but does not need to wear glasses all the time. What do you think that the board in the school can do to save students' eyes? First is, very fittingly, Lenny. Sorry.
Yeah, it is fitting considering that I've worn glasses since 1st grade. And so whatever the plan was at that point didn't work. So I would advocate, by the way, for people who have glasses, you can get blue tint into your glasses that it makes it easier on reading. So we do need to sort of take a look at the screen time that the district requires for kids and try to say we're going to reduce screen time. I don't want to be sitting there saying reduce reading. I mean, my family, our entire childhood was based on reading. My kids' childhood was based upon reading. I actually brought with me some books that we read to my daughter when she was younger. And so I think that we're going to have to suffer our eyesight and not give up reading. But I do think that we need to pay a little more attention to screen time, which is computers, iPads. And this is a dual responsibility. As a district, we need to make sure we're not assigning too much. And as a parent, you need to make sure that your kids aren't using their free time to spend in front of screens. And again, glasses nowadays can be ground so that they are easily, so they meet the needs of people who are using screens.
Thanks, Lanny. Sarah, you're next.
Well, my family's pretty mixed on this one. I've never had glasses except for cheaters that you get at Costco in a 3-pack, whereas my husband, on the other hand, has had glasses since he was very young. And in fact, our daughter, who is a senior this year, the beginning of her junior year, finally came home and said, "I'm really struggling with reading the whiteboard." And so she had to get glasses. I think she's following maybe a bit in her father's footsteps, but the screen time is, I think, a really critical issue here, and making sure that our kids have access to printed materials instead of everything having to be on a screen. But part of the question started with the personalized learning, and I think we need to be careful that we're not allowing personalized learning to remove the teacher from the students. And so when a model that it's currently going on and where it's seminar where you're actually with the teacher, or independent learning or small group learning, that independent learning is very much on your own and generally more screen time. And that can be true of the other areas. Thank you.
Next is Linda.
Yes, I 100% agree with Sarah on this issue. I think, as a person who's worn glasses since the 3rd grade, I think there is too much emphasis on screen time. Actually, I'm a little shocked when I've been tutoring. I tutor a lot of kids, and even at the middle school where they're asking them to do homework for math, which I'm a math tutor, online versus on paper and pencil. I agree, the personalized learning is part of what's driving that, screen time and the research on that indicates that it's an ongoing issue. Not only just reading on the computer is causing eyesight problems, but also doing other things on the computer that you probably shouldn't be doing and wasting your time on. So more time, computer should never come between, or technology should never come between teacher and student. There should be more emphasis on that. There's a woman who spoke in October 24th, 2016 board, you can look it up online, October 24th, 2016 board meeting as a community comments. Her name is, I won't say her name, but anyway, go watch the community comments. She spoke eloquently on the issue of personalized learning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, I've been in the back of classrooms for personalized learning, and I think that our teachers are doing an excellent job of managing how kids can get resources faster. And they've really, in the ones that I've observed, they've really done a good job of having teaching seminars and kids talking with each other. I'm not sure screen time is driven and is jacked up just because of personalized learning. So I think that's something that you guys should know. When I talked about high standards of the well-being of students, that this issue on glasses is part of that. So right now, currently, and this is something that we need to change, I believe, we have sixth graders with deadlines of midnight for projects that need to be turned in. Midnight. That's not okay. That is absolutely not okay. And we have them going to health class and them saying, you need 2 hours of downtime, of screen time, before you go to bed. So there's mixed messages coming. I've pushed back a little bit on this, and as a board member, or if I don't get elected, I'll continue to do that because I think that's a disservice.
Thanks, Julie. Next will be Lou, and final will be Jenny.
Well, going back to the question, I mean, personalized learning itself has not been shown to work in any public school of significant size, and I'm an old soul and disagree with too much free time during school. And the way that personalized learning has gone, some of the students go in the hallways and parents are afraid that their kids aren't actually doing what they're supposed to do. And as I was walking through the high school one day, I saw kids on Netflix. And I asked what they were doing. They were supposed to be in English. So I just want to make sure that we're stewarding the resources that we have to the best of our abilities. But technology is great and only in moderation. Like I went to RPI and all my math classes, Calc 1, Calc 2, multivariable, and differential equations, we weren't even allowed a calculator. And that just goes to show that everything has to be done by hand because in the real world, yes, you have resources at your disposal, such as computers, but you have to know the fundamentals first, and that's not done or achieved by being sent in the hall by yourself.
I do think this question is very important. So first I'm going to touch on the technology piece. As a board member, I would be very interested in us doing a thorough study to understand the use of technology, making sure that it does not impact or change any of the expectations that we have on their students in learning, and making sure that we're using it as a tool in learning and not as a replacement. I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I'm trying to get my kids to both become eye doctors, by the way, because I think it's a real problem. I would be remiss if I did not correct a lot of misinformation that you're hearing about personalized learning, especially in this building where we have educators in this building who are recognized for their work and what personalized learning truly is. And Julie alluded to this. I'm going to read a little bit from an actual document from Southview. Oh, I'm not going to have time. It is about our learners understanding who they are and our teachers understanding what they need to succeed, what our students need to succeed. It's about our teachers understanding as a group, what do we want our students to learn? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they don't learn it? And what will we do if they already know it? And creating pathways for them to show their proficiency. It is not what you have heard up here. I want to make that very clear, and it has nothing to do with extended screen time. Thank you.
Well, that concludes all our prepared questions and live questions. Before every candidate has time to have for your closing statement, I do want to, one of the final candidates, he sent his regrets. It's Garrett Knudsen. And just going to read briefly, we have the slide here. His vision is simple. Edina School should focus on high academic standards and performance, respect family traditions and values, and strive to prepare students for college and careers. Go ahead.
Last section, closing statement. Linda, Freddy, you go first. Each candidate has 1 minute to summarize what you talked today.
Over the past year, I've attended or watched hundreds of hours of school board meetings and work sessions. I understand achievement data and have done extensive research on many of the educational issues that are relevant in Edina. Changing demographics is not the reason for declines in our test scores. In my job as an intervention math teacher, I help some of our community's most vulnerable students achieve accelerated academic growth in ways they never dreamed possible. It can be done. We need more transparency, more accountability, and we must attach measurable metrics to everything we do to ensure that our outcomes match our intentions. We must also maintain and improve rigorous options for students across the academic spectrum. In other words, we must lift the floor and raise the ceiling so that all of our students' needs are being met. Most importantly, I'm steadfastly devoted to the welfare and development of all of your children. I'm ready to serve as a voice for students and parents, as well as teachers. I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Lenny, you go next. Lenny.
Thank you. As I said, our schools are about opportunity for our kids. As a district, we want to provide them with the opportunity to succeed in school and to succeed once they get done with school. What that means is that we need to have people on the school board who are committed to creating opportunities for all students and who have the experience to make the right decisions. We need individuals that understand the schools, the community, the parents, the teachers, the kids. I have that experience and those skills. I've been on the board for 8 years. I've had children in the district for 24 consecutive years. During that time, I've focused on maintaining the excellence of our schools. I do listen to people. I gather data. I use that data to make decisions. Again, what you're looking for is someone who's able to look at the various issues and to correctly allocate our resources, because we do have finite resources. We don't have the ability to just go out and get more money. So I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Julie, you're next.
Thank you all so much for this conversation, and I really do encourage, if you have questions specific for me, I would love to have a conversation with you. Either you can meet me at Jerry's on Wednesdays. I'm there from 10 to 12. I've been there every Wednesday throughout the election, or you can give me a call or send me an email, and we'll connect. So what can you expect from me if I'm a board member? I listen, and I seek out voices that maybe you're in Detroit for the week and you can't actually have time to come talk. I seek that out. I'm also able to lead. So take what I listen and I'm able to lead. I'm a measured person. I have a fair approach. I'm thoughtful in my decision making. And I hold myself accountable. I have high standards for myself, and I would hold those high standards for our teachers, our students, our administration, and us as parents. We can all do better in that. And the other thing I think is really important is I believe in strong partnerships with our teachers, with our administration, with our city officials, and with parents. It's a collaborative approach. It's the same as what Stanford uses. They say good ideas are turned into excellent ones, and most times with high impact and results. Sorry.
Thank you. Lo Nanny, you're next. Lo Nanny.
All right, well, thank you all for taking time out of your Saturday morning. And if elected, I will offer a unique set of experiences to the Edina School Board. As a recent graduate, I offer a student's perspective to the board. I understand the challenges and stresses of today's Edina students. Challenges such as navigating social media, cyberbullying, mental health, not necessarily astigmatism, but balancing academics and extracurriculars as well. Edina needs a school board that is broad and diverse in perspective, age, and in background. I will bring an energetic, analytical, and common sense approach to the school board. I'll ask the tough questions, demand student achievement data, and track outcomes. And I will set high expectations for myself, our students, our teachers, and our administrators. I want the near 20% of resident students to come back to Edina, and I want all students to be proud to be a Hornet. So I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Shah, it's your turn.
Education is truly at the core of this community. It is both a point of pride for anyone who grew up here, but for others like myself and maybe many of you, it's the reason we chose this community and the reason we work so hard to give our kids these opportunities. I have engaged both in and with our schools because I know they offer something to be celebrated. My vision for the work being done in our classrooms in the future is dynamic. It's intentional in meeting the needs of our students' futures as lifelong learners who are ready to be part of our global society. This vision is strategic and it relies on having a rock-solid foundation. It relies on a school board who has both experience and trusted partnership with our administration and community, and most importantly, a clear understanding of how their decisions impact the work being done in the classrooms. I have a proven track record in our district and in my professional career of building bridges, collaborating, and driving solutions. I have the experience and the trusting relationships needed to be successful in this role. I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Sarah Pasloff, your last not the least.
I think it's critical that we look at students as individuals and work to ensure that each and every student reaches their highest potential. No one deserves less because they're already achieving. I believe we are at a pivotal point and our community is going to have to make a choice in what direction we go, and I believe that choice is becoming more clear. Do we want excellence for all or mediocrity for all? Do we look at every decision on what's best for all kids based on data and best practices? I believe our district has gotten a little off track because our core focus has been clouded by other priorities. I have pushed back during my time on the board and I've raised these issues, but I have been in the minority on key votes. I believe we need people on the board and in leadership who would represent the values, beliefs, and priorities of our community. The school board represents you. Changes need to be made, and those changes have to start at the top. I believe that my experience and my leadership on the board is important. I bring an understanding of the issues and how things operate, and I believe I will be an asset to the school board going forward.
Well, thanks everybody, and let's give another final round of applause for our candidates. You can tell they're very passionate, taking the time off from the weekend, and thank you. And the second, also thank you to Minnesota International Chinese School. We have a lot of great volunteers, the leadership for hosting this, and also Southfield, my daughter's school, and for hosting this venue. But last but not least, the audience. We are very impressed with the turnout, and then make sure you come out and vote on November 5th. Thank you very much. Now it's principal, yes. My principal said name tag we need to take back, but there's gifts. And then more importantly, we're going to take some pictures together. Thank you.
If your questions is not addressed today, you can send your questions to the PTO website. We'll collect all the questions to the candidates. If they have time to answer that, we'll forward the answers to you. Thank you for your attending.
Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful.
This is a Chinese style Ingo-shaped ornament, and you can hang it somewhere in your house to give you best wishes. And please, audience, please vote on November 5th. We thank you for your contribution to our community. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful.
Can we have a group photo with 6 of you and our organizer? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
You can just sit. We will be behind you.
You can just sit down.
Yeah, we will be behind you. We're supporting you. Yeah, please sit down. Audience, if you want to join us for the group photo, you're welcome to just stand behind. If you want to take a group photo, please do join us.